Hi everyone, Stepan here. The last two games have been awful, so let's try to get back with a win. I lost the last two games really without a fight. It felt like that. In the previous video I went for a tactic that didn't work and just blundered a piece. My opponent says, "Oh, hanging pawns." Yes. Good luck. He says, "Quite a fancer." Thank you. Okay, my opponent's playing the Jobava, so it seems. A nobody eye with the 2400 bullet rating. Okay, this is gonna be fun. Let's play a6 and then e6 and c5. I'm playing the most tame and the most 29, 30 viewers. What's going on? Wow, why are so many people watching this game? I don't know, but okay. Let's see. I'm gonna play c5. My opponent should either play knight f3 or bishop d3. I think those are... He says I wanted to play the London, but I just can't. Okay. Yeah, this is, so far, this is mainline stuff. The reason black plays a6 is to avoid knight b5 lines in the Jobava, which then targets c7. And you could say a6 is a waste of tempo, but allowing knight b5 is problematic. So I learned this setup a while back, and I think it's the best way to neutralize the Jobava. I don't really know dc5. So should I take straight away or go knight c6? Both seem fine. Maybe there's knight a4? Maybe. I'll just take on c5. On knight c6 there may have been knight a4, although I'm not sure. Bishop d3 now, let's go knight c6. Okay, let's castle. And I want to go b5, bishop b7, or rook e8. Okay. A very quick e4. So what can we do about this? My opponent's basically offering a queen trade into a relatively equal position, but that would prevent b5. So if d4, knight e4, knight e4, bishop e4, I don't have b5 because of bishop takes c6. I also don't have queen c7 since the bishop's on f4. But I feel like allowing e5 would be devastating, so I'm just gonna trade. I guess I have to trade again. Do I want to exchange queens? The thing is, if I go queen f6, then bishop g5, queen b2, rook b1, and what's that position like? I'm not a big fan of that position. I'm also not a big fan of queen d3 happening at some point, targeting h7. So I'm looking at queen b6 followed by rook d8, but then queen d3. For the moment, bishop h7 is actually hanging. Bishop h7, king h7, knight g5. Yeah, so I feel like trading queens is a must. Because I was hanging the Greek gift if I didn't trade queens. Alright, now, how do we get out of this bind? Which squares aren't covered? For the moment, rook d8 and rook d7 are prevented. I need to play e5. I need to play e5. But if I go f6, e5, then there's bishop d5. How do I get rid of that bishop? f5 seems very, very scary to play. I'm not sure I want to do that. Knight e7 makes little sense. How do I get rid of that bishop? I have to play either b5 or b6 or e5 at some point. If I go f5, my opponent goes bishop d3. That's the only move. And then b5. My opponent goes bishop d6 and wins, because when I take, there's rook d6 and my knight's hanging, and my opponent's bishop after c3, bishop c2, bishop b3 could be targeting e6. So this seems like a bad position to me. Unless I can find a way to develop. Okay, what about bishop e7 and bishop f6 and then e5? My opponent could still go bishop d6, so bishop e7 seems like a waste of tempo. Wait, do I have e5, e5, knight e5, knight e5, bishop e5, rook e8? No, I don't, because... oh, yes, I do. Because on rook d8 there is bishop f8. So e5, knight e5, knight e5, bishop e5, rook e8, double attacking the bishops. If my opponent plays rook d5, there is bishop e6. And if, let's say, one of the bishops moves, then rook takes e5, rook d8, check, bishop f8. e5, knight e5, knight e5, bishop e5, rook e8. On e5, my opponent could also move the bishop and then play bishop takes c6, bc6, and knight e5 at some point. Yeah, I don't like e5. Seems premature. Okay, I'm playing bishop e7, bishop f6, because I don't see anything stronger than that. And on knight e5, I'm gonna take and play f6, e5, I think. This was a tough position to figure out. Maybe bishop e7 is just bad, but I couldn't see a way to play e5 without reinforcing it. And rook e8, which definitely was a candidate, seemed bad because of knight e5 blockading the pawn. Now at least on knight e5 I can take and go bishop f6. And gf6 followed by e5, bishop e6 seems to solve my problems. Also, I'll have rook b8 at some point. If I get rid of the bishop on f4. Maybe I did have e5. Okay, let's not dwell on that now. It's too late anyway. I don't get bishop c7. Why would my opponent play bishop c7? If I go bishop f6, do they plan to play bishop d6? I don't get this. I'm just gonna play bishop f6. Yeah, but don't I have e5 now? Yeah, I'm playing e5 because I don't see a refutation. Now my bishop is outside of the pawn chain. And I plan to play bishop e6. What? Oh, my opponent just gives up the bishop? Okay. That's okay. How do I save my bishop pair? I need to save my bishop pair, that much is certain. So I definitely don't want to trade. So I think bishop e7 is the only reasonable candidate. And on rook e1, bishop e6. And my opponent can go bishop d6 now. But they did not. So let's go bishop e6. And then rook d8 to prevent rook d6. Or sorry, bishop d6. Okay, let's go. So my opponent wants to go knight d4, followed by knight takes e6, and if I go bishop d5, my opponent's gonna go c4. So do I have to play c5? But on c5 there is bishop d6 again. So c5, bishop d6, bishop d6, rook d6. h6 to prevent knight g5. And then maybe I can start targeting the queen side with a5, a4. That seems like a relatively good idea. Okay, I have to prevent knight d4. I have to prevent knight d4. I'm expecting bishop d6. If my opponent doesn't play bishop d6, I'll be very happy because I'll get to play rook fd8, preventing the trade. I'm worse and I'm down a pawn, so I have to fight for a draw, and the way to do that here is to exchange the queenside pawns and create some targets. So I have to play a5, a4, soften up b3. And that's gonna happen whether my opponent plays c4 or not. I just had to prevent knight d4, which was annoying. And with my bishop on e6, the rook cannot target c5 because the bishop controls d5. So with bishop d6, okay, this is fine. This is okay. Now I think I play rook fd8 and trade on d2. I really want to go a5, a4. My opponent left the game. You can claim victory in 64 seconds. A phone call. The bishop pair should be enough compensation for a pawn, and now that I've avoided bishop d6, it seems like my position is relatively safe. I think I trade once, but then bishop d6 is threatened again. But then I may have rook d8. Okay, so I definitely cannot allow a double trade where the position ends up with my bishop on d8, because then bishop d6 is threatened. So now I want to go a4, a5. If my opponent plays bishop d6, I may have bishop f6. So let's say a5, bishop d6, bishop f6, c4. I may have bishop c3 followed by bishop b4. That seems nice. Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. I wanna play a4. If I play a4 successfully, I'll be able to initiate queenside trades and reduce the number of pawns, because if my opponent's gonna win, he's gonna win by queening one of the queenside pawns. And if there are no queenside pawns, my bishop pair is gonna be enough. If, let's say, my opponent's left with one queenside pawn, then I'll feel pretty safe. In this position, actually, I may... Okay. So a4. I'm actually happy to see c4 being played, because on bishop d6, I can trade... Oh, wait. Now my back rank is hanging, so let's try to be a bit more careful. On bishop d6, I would actually consider rook d8 now. Okay, so let's go a4. Okay, what if I do go rook d8? Then my opponent definitely needs to move the bishop. Definitely. And is that sure? Yeah, they would just take on e7. So I either play king f8, or I take on b3. So a b3, bishop e7, ba2, and then rook d1 is forced, and then I queen. So my opponent has to take back on b3. Okay, so let's play a b3. Once again, a b3, bishop e7, ba2, rook d1, a1 queen. That works. Because there is no bishop e5, the bishop is on e7. Okay, now do we play king f8, or do we play bishop d6? I prefer king f8. So king f8, bishop e7, king e7, knight g5, rook b8. Okay, king f8 seems fine to me. I don't really want to take on d6 because that will increase my opponent's chances of successfully targeting the c5 pawn. There is knight g5 now because my bishop is pinned. But I feel like this should be fine. I don't think I'm losing. I'm slightly worried about knight g5 now. If knight g5, what do I do? My opponent's threatening knight h7 check. Okay, they did not play knight g5. So now can I go rook a3? Rook a3, rook d3. How does my opponent save the pawn? Well, they could go rook b2. after taking on e7. Okay, I think I'm playing rook a3. There is no b4 because I take on c4 with check. Now after king f1. Rook d3 also fails to bishop takes c4. So am I just good now? Rook d3 is impossible because the b pawn is pinned and the king is on f1. Rook b2 doesn't work because of bishop takes d6. So my opponent needs to play bishop e7, king e7, and then rook b2. And then the rook is very passive. Yeah. Oh, that doesn't work, my friend. Oh ho ho ho. Yeah, now we're winning from a very bad position. Excuse me. So let's go as far away from that knight as possible. We don't want to allow any forks. This still isn't a trivial win. It's going to be fairly technical. I need to play f6 as soon as I can to prevent the knight from jumping into g5 or e5. Okay. Now I'm just winning the c pawn if the knight ever moves. So wait, am I hanging any forks? Rook c3, knight e4, rook c4. There are no forks. Now I think it's going to be a cleaner win because the king is restricted from helping the knight, and if the knight moves I just pick up the pawn. Okay, so now let's start restricting the knight. e4, taking away the e4 square. Okay, so rook c4, knight e3. I don't have any checks and I'm gonna lose my f pawn. Not good, that's not good. So let's prevent knight e3 by playing f4, I guess. If king d2, then the knight doesn't have d2. Let's not mess this up. Okay, I'm down 7.5 minutes on the clock, but it shouldn't be a complicated win from here. If I can pick up the c pawn, it should be relatively easy. Or the g pawn. On king d2 I have rook a3 and the g pawn is just gone. The only way to save this pawn is to play... Okay, I have to watch out for knight e4. So knight e4 is coming, and let's not blunder anything. King d6 or king f6 would be a blunder. So let's play it safe. If my opponent plays knight e4 and I take, what am I hanging? I don't think I'm hanging anything. I don't want to go king e6 because there's knight g5 in the end and knight c5 with check. So I'll just go h6. I want to see what my opponent does. It seems very, very close to Zugzwang now. So king e6, knight e4, rook c4, there's no knight c5, there's no knight g5. I can safely improve. Okay, king e5, are there any tricks? I don't see any tricks. Knight e4 doesn't work, so let's improve. Yeah, I think it's over. I don't see... Yeah. Yes! Come on! It should not have... Okay, I'm gonna say good game. Sorry for the blunder. Sorry for the blunder. Yeah, I mean, it should not have been a loss for my opponent. He just... I mean, he blundered bishop takes c4. He says, nah, too much bullet. Hope to meet you again. To play you again. Okay, let's analyze. Why did I get into so much trouble? Okay, so this is fine. And I didn't really know dc5, to be honest. I know the bishop moving and something else. Okay, bishop d3, knight c6. Apparently it's all theory. Castles. e4 is still theory. Okay, d4, knight e4. Okay, knight e4 has only been played once, and that's a slight inaccuracy. Bishop e7 is better. And I did play bishop e7 later, so it makes a lot of sense. Knight takes, knight takes. Queen f6 has been played before. Okay, taking the queens is a mistake. And now, this key position where I spent a million minutes thinking about the move, yeah. Bishop e7 is just awful. He should have gone bishop d6 straight away. e5. And again bishop d6. Okay, c5. After c5, I was only afraid of bishop d6, but now when I played rook d8, it felt slightly safer. a5, good. a4, good. Bishop d6 finally. King f8. Okay, I can insert this. King f8. I was afraid of knight g5, but my opponent didn't play it. Rook a3. Yeah, and rook d3 is just awful. Rook d3 just loses the game immediately. And let's see if my technique was good. Okay, rook a3 is fine. Okay, this is fine. f4 is fine. King e6 is fine. King e5 is fine. Yeah. Okay, my technique was good. Oh, yes. Okay, I beat a high-rated opponent, won back the 9 points I lost in yesterday's game like a moron, and yeah, stay tuned for more chess. Hopefully the next one is well, better than this one, because I had a bad position. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye-bye.